So welcome. My name is Chihiro, and it's super lovely to see you. Thank you for being here in the room. Thank you for tuning in if you're watching this later. Today's panel sits in the work of the exposition, People Powered Movement versus Shell, which me and Anna Bissila have worked on the past 3 months, and started as a conversation with Milia Defensie to do something artistic in between 2 court cases that are currently held in the Netherlands. The exposition is our own creative take on what we wanted to share about these court cases don't sit alone. Even the climate movement that we see today and that we're part of don't sit alone. They are part of a huge history of ancestors in resistance. So when we talk today about reclaiming culture, I just want to call in our historical long view also of so many people have gone before us, and what is to be our next step as we reclaim culture. I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. I very much look forward to your understanding of our expo as we open the 30th of October in Fuse, Amsterdam. And let's open the floor for this event. Anna.
So I'm Anna Bissila. I'm, as Chihiro said, I'm helping also with the exhibition, which has been such a wonderful process to discover so much, to dig into the history of Shell and their intrusion into our spaces, the spaces that belong to us as our citizens, and that Shell doesn't really share with us. They take these spaces without asking people for their opinion, and take advantage of their own power for that. I have some examples of that in my presentation, but I'm just going to talk about it. One instance that is not necessarily, perfect, in our exhibition is this example in Ecuador. You can see that there's a city named after Shell, which I find quite insane. And that happened because they decided to install some offices there in 1937, and it seems like for them it was okay to just decide of the name of the city, and that people living there would just have to go with their flow and become part of Shell indirectly. One element that will be part of our exhibition is the Irish struggle in Corrib, in the County Mayo, which Lorna Siggins covered quite well. And here you can see that Shell really jumped into this community using their money, like they are doing in many places still. This kind of behavior can break communities, because if you offer one person to take money for the space and other people in this community do not share this opinion, what happens? You break a community, you break a culture. The same happened in South Africa, for instance, when there was a boycott of the apartheid in South Africa. Instead of just being human and deciding not to comply with the South African rules, Shell decided to simply actually comply with them and to push further by hiring a PR company to make themselves look better. So what is important today for us is to share the message that it is important that we adopt the same strategy, that we become PR for ourselves, that we show that what we need is really to show Shell that we do not need them, that we need to phase out, which they are trying to make difficult, but we are strong. That's why our exhibition is called People Powered Movement. And so I will introduce, before introducing the panelists of today, I will make you listen to Friday Barilule Nbani, who is from Nigeria. He can tell in better words how the invasion of fossil fuel can break a company and can break a community and their habits.
Yes. My name is Mbani Friday Barilule. I was born and grew up in Ogoni land. Ogoni environment was the best place to live, to spend life, before the discovery of oil in the area. Why do I say so? It is because of the beauty of the environment, especially the plants, different species of it, the species of animals in the region, the source of livelihood were easily accessible, available, and affordable without much suffering. Life was so easy and enjoyable. When you talk about water, water was accessible, available, and clean one, fit for drinking, bathing, cooking, for domestic purpose, and agricultural use. And life was so enjoyable not until 1958, when oil was discovered in Ogoni land and Shell started operation. We thought it was a blessing. We thought it's going to benefit the host community. So we welcome Shell. In fact, that was the first time we are seeing foreigners, white men. So we celebrated and embraced them. But the wicked people Shell took us for granted, and even the local content was not given to us, the host community. Until 1990, when Ken Salonwiwa came up boldly and owned the Ogoni struggle, he started sensitizing, educating us that Shell did not observe environmental impact assessment, that Shell did not make provision for local content, and no community benefit, that Shell came to destroy and to kill our environment. So, Ken Salonwiwa went further to establish the movement of the survivor of Ogoni people, MOSOP, in 1990. The Ogoni rose to international attention after a massive public protest campaigning against Shell, led by MOSOP. Presently, you will not believe that such an environment where people were rushing to, where people were enjoying their life, has become a desert. Why do I call it a desert? It was because of the pains, the communal crisis, pollution, contamination, gas flaming, oil spillage, corruption, sickness, and death rate in the region. The aquifer has been contaminated, and report released by UNEP after conducting environmental assessment on Ogoni land showed that Ogoni people has been consuming 900 times benzene in water. This is the report of UNEP. Death rate increased on a daily basis. In those days, before the extraction of oil, our grandmother, our grandfather has been living 100 years and above. Today, the vice is the case, where you see a 40 years person in Ogoni land, and he is the king or elder of the community. Life expectancy is becoming very short. Our beautiful species of plants and animals have gone on extinction. Pollution has stolen away our culture, animal, and vegetation. In 2006, reports show that Ogoni residents have constantly inhaled black soot, a tiny particulate, which are inimical to health. Ogoni people has nowhere to run to, and as such, people die on daily basis. Burial ceremony is the major function in Ogoni now. The situation is getting worse every day because there is no electricity, there is no good roads, no hospital, schools are not well equipped, police station is just one, and no portable source of drinking water. It appeared to me that it's a state policy to kill the entire Ogoni people. Having faced a devastating effect of the activities of share, and we also face discrimination from Nigeria government, which favor the oil company. We continue to experience crisis, community crisis, fueling by the oil company. In 2016, Lakers Development Foundation was established, having observed that a large percentage of the Ogoni people cannot afford $1 per day for living. Lakers Development Foundation is a grassroots organization that works in Ogoni land to raise young climate activists, advocate for livelihood for fishermen and farmers that have lost their livelihood, and campaigning against fossil fuel as we call for renewable energy in the regions. One thing I've learned since I started activism is that we must get victory and justice. It may take time, but victory is sure. And when community is involved, united, then justice is sure. Again, it's good to be good. Stand for right, call for right, speak for right, and always stand for the oppressed. Another key thing I've learned is education is a key. Educating the grassroots people to know the implication of an issue, help them to buy in the struggle. This is what Ken Saro-Wiwa did before carrying out his struggle. He went to community by community and educate them, the stakeholder, to send their sons and daughters to school, that tomorrow they will become the leaders of Ogoni. And they will champion the Ogoni struggle, and everything will be easy.
So I hope that you loved this beautiful story that is full of hope. Friday is right. The only end to this story is victory. And our panelists today will explain you how we can reach that victory. We will start with Femke Sleegers from Reclame Fossiel Vrij. Sorry for my accent. She's campaigning for the disappearing of our spaces, for shell disappearing from our public and advertising spaces. So I am giving you the floor so you can say more.
I'm Femke from Fossil Free Movement, and with our group Fossil Free Advertisements, we are campaigning for a law that bans all advertisements from fossil fuel industry for air travel and for cars that run on fossil fuels. And when we started out this campaign, I think 1 year ago or something, of course we were looking if anywhere in the world there was such a ban, or that people were campaigning for such a ban. And very much to our surprise, we found that there's no ban anywhere, or people weren't campaigning for a ban. And that surprised us a lot, because with tobacco, we all know, because of the ban on tobacco advertisements, we know that what is bad for you and what is very addictive, you can't advertise for that. And it's also very logical. If you want to break with an addiction, you have to take away the seduction. And we saw that how Shell with the advertisements is really steering our thoughts and our view on the world. And it's also a break on the transition. And I'll show you a few examples of advertisements. This one was an advertisement from last year on International Women's Day. And Shell made the words she and will go together until it became she'll. And shall, she will make the future gender balanced. And this one, there's a lot of agitation on it. This is a Shell truck that's on the road in Holland. And of course, it's full of fossil fuels, and they're pretending to be on the right track, but just this little bit. This one is also quite preposterous. It's about Shell connecting to trees, through life, through oxygen, to growth. But yeah, of course, Shell is only destruction and CO2 and death. Well, it's all very easy to make fun of these advertisements because they're so in your face, and the lies are so in your face. But we should go further than only joke about it, because the influence of advertising is so profound, and it's really everybody thinks you can see through it and you won't be affected by advertisements. But the truth is, if we were, then they wouldn't spend so much money on it. And advertisement by fossil fuel industry, it affects our society, it affects us, the way we think, it affects really the course of our politics, and it affects our future. It also, a very important effect is that it normalizes things, because advertisements, they are repeated, you see them all the time, and the more you see it, the more it feels like home, and that's really a very dangerous aspect of advertisement. The bad news is that fossil fuel industry has been influencing us with advertisements for, I think, 20, 30 years. So much of their worldview is already embedded into our society. And also in our politics. If you look at the politics for climate today, it's very much the way Shell wants it, because of advertising, gas was plugged as a transition fuel. And last week, Frans Timmermans said, we need gas, it's a transition fuel. And also this idea that people individually are responsible for tackling climate change by changing their consumer behavior. This is also plugged by advertising by Shell and BP. And now, the first time our government runs a campaign on climate change, it says everyone does a little bit. And they are talking about, I don't know what in English, the bandenspanning checken. Like if your tires are hard enough. Yeah. And there's also more bad news, because it's the richest companies who can afford to reach anyone they want, when they want, wherever they want. And Shell is one of the 5th richest companies. And this way they can just steer our thoughts whenever they want. And but there's also good news. And the good news is that since, I think, half a year, everywhere in Europe, people are demanding a ban on fossil fuel advertisements. And in Belgium, there's political parties asking for a ban on advertising for SUVs. And in France, people are also asking for a ban, just like ours, a ban on fossil fuels, air tickets, and of the advertising therefore, and polluting cars. And also in England, the anti-advertisement campaign is getting big. So this is the good news. And I'll show you some examples of how profound the influencing of Shell is in their advertisements. I don't know if you remember this campaign. This was last year, November, December. It was in the big cities in the Netherlands, Utrecht, The Hague, Rotterdam, Amsterdam. It was the great travel hack of Shell about clean vervoer. And I was taking pictures of a tram in The Hague with the Shell logo and for Twitter. And then I turned around and I saw I was standing in front of an advertisement for Exxon with algae and green energy. And then I thought, well, why are two of the biggest oil companies advertising at the same time with this huge public campaign? And then I remembered the research of a professor in the US, Brille, and he saw that the public campaigns, the fossil fuel industry intensified them around political decision moments, important political decision moments. And last year, these campaigns ran in the run-up to the COP25 in Madrid. And then they wanted to plug gas as a solution to climate change, but I'll not go there. So you see that through the public campaigns, they really influence the politics. And this is NRC, the newspaper read most by the people on influential positions, like the politicians and the ministers. And NRC has a special department that writes the branded content articles for Shell. And they make these articles in such a way that they appear just like normal journalistic advertisements. And their system places these branded content articles right next to an article, a good article, journalistic article on the issues of climate change. And in this way, the advertisement of Shell directly contradicts the journalistic input, and it lulls people to sleep, because people think, well, the article reads that it's not going well, but Shell, one of the main causes of climate change, is changing, so there's hope. This is another example of NRC, and it's not only lulling people asleep, but Shell is also posing as a partner to the government to tackle climate change, as a leader. But of course, Shell is not a partner, Shell is the perpetrator. And you can also see it normalizes tech fixes. And in this way, it prevents us, the society, from thinking about other kinds of solutions to climate change, like degrowth, for example. Also, this is a Berhaffen Museum in Leiden. And this is also about normalizing Shell. Shell is the main sponsor of the museum. And Berhaffen has a special department dedicated to the Dutch history with fossil fuels and Shell. And this room is about the Dutch pride with great inventions, and there are Dutch Nobel Prize winners, and there are other kinds of really great scientists, and there's Marianne van Loon in the middle of them. And Berhaffen says, no, our sponsorship doesn't influence our exhibition, but of course it does. And it not only normalizes Shell, it also puts them on a pedestal and makes them the heroes. It also says, our greatest multinational, and we are the land of fossil fuels. Yeah, because of the time, unfortunately, I can't say too much about this, the Generation Discover Festival. It's for kids from 6-year-olds that won a lobby prize. And then you know one thing, that the audience, the target audience of Shell, wasn't just kids. And this was a guest on the Generation Festival. Shell, as a real climate leader, Shell invites others to join the fight in climate change. And of course, Shell is the one changing the world, not for the better. So the one idea that should change the world should be one that prevents Shell from changing the world. And we think a ban on advertisement is a very important step, because we take away the mouthpiece of fossil fuel industry to change the discourse of society. They want us, they hold us prisoners in their worldview, and that's a worldview that is based on oil and gas. And that's why we campaign for a law that bans fossil fuel advertisements. And we do so with a citizens' initiative, and it's based on the law for a ban on tobacco advertisement. We're trying to sneak into the election programs of political parties. And also, before the law is there, we speak to the platforms that that earn money by spreading the propaganda of Shell, like Berhaffen, like NRC, and also cities that have outdoor advertisements. And we want them to stop being, earning money from spreading the propaganda that keeps us locked into a fossil fuel world. Ban on advertisements should have been the first measure ever when climate change became on the political agenda. It should be in the 90s, it should have been the very first measure. But now we can make up for it, and really let's make fossil fuel advertisements as passé as the tobacco advertisements.
Thanks a lot, Femke. That was really interesting. I'm really happy to hear you say that we indeed have to wake up from our addiction to fossil fuel. It doesn't seem like we are addicted because it's not really a choice that we had. It has been imposed on us, but now that we can learn from this past history and all the struggles from our ancestors, it's nice to have organizations like yours that really push it into our eyes, the same way that Shell wants to put still some fossil fuel into our eyes through advertisement. I will continue with the next panelist, who is Alison Pasquarello. She's from Fossil-Free Culture. They also tackle the invasion of Shell into cultural spaces, but directly through art instead of law and advertisement like Reclame Fossiel Vrij does. So I welcome you to the stage, Alison.
Cool. Hi, everyone. My name is Allison. I'm with Fossil-Free Culture. I'm an organizer and an activist. Thank you so much for having me here today, to everyone who organized it. Thank you so much for being here today. You all look very well spaced out, just like on Zoom, but very three-dimensional, so that's good. I thought that I would begin by situating my own knowledges a little bit for you. This is something that my people do. I think it's just really helpful. So first is that I'm actually not an artist myself, even though I'll be discussing a lot of art today. I've worked with art, I maintain a close connection with art, but I'm hoping to carry the voices of the artists that I do work with into what I share with you. Fossil-Free Culture is a feminist collective of artists, cultural workers, and activists, essentially working to end art washing in the Dutch cultural sector. So I thought I would begin by discussing this term, art washing. Where do I begin? Let's see. So fossil fuel companies use the sponsorship in the cultural sector to public institutions in order to sanitize their image and essentially gain and maintain the social license to operate, to continue their harmful actions towards climate change, all in the name of capitalism. And so this PR strategy we call art washing. Art washing is a part of a larger power structure that supports the fossil fuel industry within our society. Here you see that it's specifically within the cultural institution, but there's of course many other ways in which this power structure maintains itself in our society today. But art washing is not only about a public image, the use of Shell to advertise through their sponsorship deals, but also gains Shell a certain network by participating in these cultural spaces and in these events. And I think that you might know of the cultural sector is that these spaces are often separate actually from the public. They're not your ordinary public art exhibition where everyone has like a certain feeling of togetherness. But these sorts of events that they're attending, by being a sponsor in particular, along with their clients, are events that are, very for the elite. They're disproportionately wealthy and disproportionately white. And of course, are constituted by a group that is more powerful than most citizens. So in the conversations in which they meet, they also gain a lot of influence over these people because everyone knows who's paying for the meal or who's paying for the space for them to meet in. And that always goes to the sponsor. So there's many ways to disrupt power structures. The one that we find is like our purpose at Fossil Free Culture is to use disobedient art to confront cultural institutions and how they might uphold Shell and Shell's power. Shout out to anybody in the room who does one of these other little lightning bolts. We're all working together towards very similar aims, but this is just how Fossil Free Culture approaches the system and does our part to disrupt it. The way that we do that is through disobedient art. That is essentially the meeting of art and activism. So we try to take the creative forces of art with the strategic thinking of activism and combine them. And that's what I was thinking I would share with you today. A little bit about the tactics that we've learned to use against Shell by combining art and activism. The first thing is that we use we employ methods of civil disobedience. I think that all of the disobedient art that we practice is can be considered civil disobedience. And this is not only in the sense that, civil disobedience historically and today is the way in which societies are forced to change. So it's not only taking that from the people who are before us and other like rad people in the world, but also we're taking on the perspective a little bit of Thoreau in that we feel it's our duty to do. I was gonna give you a wonderful video example, but you can look it up on YouTube if you'd like at Fossil Free Culture at the Van Gogh Museum. But instead, I'll describe it for you a little bit. Luckily, I have a photo. So at the Van Gogh Museum, which was our primary target in 2017, before my time at FFC, we infiltrated the Van Gogh Museum by putting on a performance on their main staircase as you enter, if anyone's ever been there, where there were a bunch of performers dressed in white who were sipping out of a shell oil, fake oil, but oil. And essentially here, the success of this event, I would say, the success of this practice of disobedient art is, in a large way, because of the confusion that it caused. So this is the first tactic. The members of the public, which in the video you could see a little bit better, but the members of the public really thought initially that this was a performance put on by the Van Gogh Museum. So they were taking pictures like you do. And the security guards also thought that it was a performance by the Van Gogh Museum until they realized it wasn't. But when they did realize it was not a performance of the Van Gogh Museum, they did not interrupt the performers. There's something in our cultural habits that says not to disrupt something that is beautiful, that is inherently art. And this is something that we carry with us through our vision and purpose. Art is very core to what we do. I guess, we see it as a way to connect with people on an individual level, on a personal level, and on an emotional level through aesthetics. This was another performance in 2017 at the Van Gogh Museum that I selected because I thought it really, represented the power of art in disobedient art and civil disobedience, which is, at the time, we didn't know anything about somebody who worked at the Van Gogh Museum. One of these people who gets to hobnob with the Shell executives and their clients, we don't know them personally, and so we don't know what makes them tick, right? But what we do know about them is that they care very much about the Van Gogh Museum, and that they knew the base of one of the exhibitions that was on at the time called In the Forest. And In the Forest had to do with Van Gogh's love of the unspoiled landscape. So Van Gogh would be very bummed to see all the spoiled landscapes today. But we worked with this concept in order to connect with them on a personal level through creating a spoiled landscape itself in the museum. And yeah, I think that this sort of practice also gives us sort of unlimited inspiration for how to disrupt shell within the cultural institutions and those spaces. Since then, we've completed 3 performances at the Concertgebouw, because in addition to being very mischievous, we are also very persistent, and one can call that a political strategy. And finally, at the beginning of this year, the Concertgebouw ended its contract with Shell, or if you're somebody who also likes a little bit of gossip, perhaps Shell ended their sponsorship with Concertgebouw. So this is us celebrating in the now fossil-free Museumplein, which is very unique to Amsterdam in the world. But I like to share this idea of celebrating this as a sort of win or success, even though the 3 performances, the 3 actions of disobedient art that we carried out in the Concertgebouw didn't necessarily, how do I say this, directly lead to Shell ending their contract, right? And I think that's, if there was one takeaway I could give with you, it would be that, right? Is that it's not like Shell has this amount of power, and with each performance of disobedient art, we're knocking them down one step until they're at 0, no power. Because that's just a very linear way of thinking about it. Instead, we're all building towards something, and we're forcing Shell to change and to adapt and to come up with new strategies that we will then also adapt and break down. So now, of course, our new target is the Nemo Museum, which is involved in science and education for children. Some of you may have been there even to celebrate with us. Yeah, and so we would love for you to join us in solidarity in asking Nemo to end this partnership. I think that Shell is switching to science and a little bit away from art and culture, but I would love to hear everyone else's thoughts on that. Yeah, and I hope to see you soon. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks so much, Alison. I'm really happy that you mentioned also the emotions that are provoked by the art in general. I just wanted to quickly remind that this piece here, that is here to remember Ken Saro-Wiwa, that was mentioned in the audio story that you heard from Nigeria earlier, is here to push some emotions into you. Also the installation As Below, So Above that you will discover from next week on at Fuse NDSM in Amsterdam. And I would like to introduce Eline, starting with that, because she also uses art as a tool, let's say, to pass her message. As you can see now, the name she uses is Je Moeder, to talk about our Mother Earth. So, Eline, thank you for being here, and I let you explain all your process. And you.
Wow, amazing to celebrate this resistance against Shell in this way, that we're all here together, and I feel part of a very powerful movement. Je Moeder actually started like 4 years ago. I was already involved quite a lot in the climate activist movement, participating various actions, direct actions, and I'm very into spreading messages. And I think with spreading an important message, I think we add force to what we want as a climate movement. So I found actually a great medium to put messages on is clothing. Because everyone is wearing a piece of clothes, usually every day. And it's a great potential to spread a message and to keep repeating it. So for this goal, of course, Je Moeder, it means your mama, for the people that don't get Dutch. One of the problems using clothing was, of course, that the clothing industry is a very polluting one and very drained with fossil fuels. So I found a way to print on recycled materials and upcycled materials to even clean up the big mess of excess of textiles that we have. So basically, it's like an activistic clothing brand. And I'm still doing participating in many actions. This is in 2017, I think, Code Rood, we went into the coal harbor in Amsterdam with around 300 people, and I'd like to add my signature there everywhere, using a toilet brush and some coal juice. So this is really like direct action, directly stopping the business, basically, of Shell and fossil fuel industries. So to disrupt their business. This is in 2018. We participated with a group suddenly growing, like an activist group that wanted to spread this message also together with Je Moeder. So we were a small group settling on the train tracks, having a cup of tea, and blocking the entrance of a gas condensate park in Groningen, in the north of Holland. We did it for 2 days. It was amazing. So what is also the signature is I'd like to add, and I like to change the narrative a little bit by creating new stories and creating or using theater to add some spice to the story. And so basically, if you're creating something that is special or a little bit absurd even, you switch the focus of the story. Wait. So this is also what we do. We disrupt the stage of, in this case, Ben van Beurden, the CEO of Shell. As you can see, this is in the Rode Hoed in Amsterdam. And he's having a lecture about new energy, which is kind of ridiculous, of course, right? That this man still has a stage to talk about his lies. So we went there with 7 pregnant women, disrupting for a little while his talk. And we had a little speech that, disrupted his and delegitimizes basically what they're spreading. And after that, we had a little talk with Ben van Beurden. I remember this moment as being on fire of rage. Yeah, because there's just so. This guy is brainwashed really with lies, and he believes in his lies that he is still believing in. It's incredible. You can't pierce through there. We also did an action. One of the purposes also of Je Moeder is to unmask and to show the real face of Shell. And also that they have a whole team around them with cleaners, basically, that are cleaning their reputation of Shell all the time. So as you can see, there's a cleaning team brushing their shoes, brushing their nails, meanwhile, so they look good. And we had a little performance there, a theatrical performance there in front of their headquarters. This is a parody on the lobby prize that Femke was showing us. This was actually her prize of the biggest liar. So more cleaning. This is in Generation Discover Festival. So we really see that the Shell wolf is still seducing children with cookies to come over and hear their story. Just shortly, 2 years ago, we were at the AGM, the shareholders meeting of Shell in Scheveningen, where we did a ceremony, so like a mix of street art, street theater, and ceremony to represent the movement from egoism to ecoism. We did that to really invoke the four elements, the four main forces of life that are actually much more powerful than Shell is claiming to be. So we were there in front of the entrance to show some force and reclaim that force as well. This was one of their elements, cleaning and putting it on a stage, putting our planet Earth in the center. This is some little teaser of what's going to happen. So yeah, I will do a little ritual of transformation after this. And yeah, Je Moeder is still going strong, still growing. And that's it.
Thanks a lot, Eline. So I would like to call back Femke and Alison on the stage. And Eline, you can stay too. Okay, good. So after listening to this panel of strong women who are ready to push us to see Shell's communication for what it is, do you have any question for them? I would like to give you first the opportunity to ask questions, and then I will go on. Don't be shy.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
I have a question. I was curious, what informs your rituals? Where do you find, inside you? I don't know.
It is inspired, I think, by ecofeminism and, I think witchcraft as well.
Okay, cool.
I do think that, getting into magic, doing ceremonies, and getting into indigenous rituals and ceremonies as well, inspires me to make such actions and to really get to the core of our forces, of elemental forces that we all have inside us. Yeah.
Yes.
Question. Has been there some, you say that, has there been people from different countries, for example, Curacao, or from other places in the Caribbean or other continents that you got in contact with, or who are interested in this, in this important mission?
So I will repeat the question for the audio. We need to know if there are people from the Caribbean and, for instance, Curacao, who are interested in our process, in our exhibition, if I understood well. It is the case. We had an audio story from Curacao just this morning, but you're more than welcome to come join us in Amsterdam to hear it. There will be a special installation with both these stories, but indeed, we did get in contact with people from Curacao, from Indonesia also, on the other side, from many places in the world. I think we have 15 countries that were willing to share their the way they lived the intrusion of Shell in their space. I will let Chihiro say more about it because she was in contact with them and she's happy to say
I will
words
just
about
say
it.
one thing because we're talking also about art. I think it's important to name the beautiful work of Sinaya Wolfert, who made a photo book of 100 years of the oil refinery in La Isla, in Curacao in particular. So the short answer is yes, and also from an artistic point of view, there's people engaging. From an activist point of view, we have a story, an audio story, and in the expo there's a bigger decolonial narrative throughout. I think in this panel we are more situated in the Dutch context of raising the cultural resistance, because in particular the Dutch people have been bombarded with propaganda and have had, both on the political level, on the cultural institutional level, in all sorts of cultural levels, been groomed to see Shell as something that is just something part of the national history, and something that we should not question at all. So that's really the focus of this panel. So I'm just gonna leave it at that. Thank you for your question.
Yes.
One of you say more about Shell's involvement in education.
I can talk hours about that, and I only had 10 minutes.
Yes, the question is to know more about the influence of Shell in education.
Yes, the fossil fuel industry, it's not just Shell, it's all fossil fuel industry have been involved in education from like starting with 5-year-olds, and then people from Shell go to classrooms and they teach kids how to cut out windmills. But there's also, they have trainings for teachers by Shell, so the teachers can spread Shell's narrative. They have educational material in which they plug gas. There's this educational material for the secondary education, and it says in the conclusion, now you all know that natural gas is very versatile and a solution to climate change. It literally says that. And it also pleads for carbon capture and storage, and it also pleads for consumer responsibility. And taking away the urgency is also a very important message from Shell in classrooms. And also what is interesting is Shell has lobbied in the Netherlands to make science and technology an obligatory subject in schools. And this was why this festival Generation Discover with this big ferry wheel was aimed to do. And they made a lesson program together with NEMO, and it's called Maakkunde. And they are plugging this into schools so that schools can teach kids about science technology through the lens of Shell. So that answers your question, or do you have other questions?
Maybe as a follow-up question, because you mentioned Berhaffen and you mentioned Nemo, and both of them are science museums, and Shell has kept relationships there and infiltrated in different ways. I would love to hear a little bit more about the different tactics to unnerve that, to dismantle that. For both.
You can begin.
At Berhaffen Museum, we started by really making it visible, because people just didn't know, and we started out with an opinion paper in the Volkskrant, an article, editorial, and it was very well read also by the people at Berhaffen. And a year later, we collaborated with Extinction Rebellion Leiden, and we did an action. And at the moment that the king was arriving at the festival, the king was going to open this giant exhibition called Virus, and it was at the Corona times, so we knew there would be a lot of attention to it. And then we were there, and we were handing out little soaps to. Now our message was, I have to say, our message was the museum is contaminated with Shell. That was our message, our main message, and we gave soaps away to the people there with the logo of Shell, and that was a really good action. And we're also having some follow-up actions in our mind, and it's also one of the tactics is also involving lots of groups from the climate movement, and also inspiring other groups to continue this fight. So, yeah.
I'm glad you said that. I just had several responses to this come into my head, and then I thought, oh, we're just at the beginning of our campaign at FFC, and every single one I thought, oh wait, I can't say that yet, I can't say that yet, I can't say that yet. Yeah. So I think right now we're, the tactics that we take are definitely working, like, in general, creatively with the topic at hand. And I think that when it comes to education, there's like so much content to work with compared to like an art institution where it's like there's a finite number of art exhibits happening like within like that institution's cycle of that year, whereas with like Nemo and science education, education is rather infinite in terms of content that you can work with in order to demonstrate against these agreements. Yeah. You'd like to begin? This is for everyone, no?
Yeah, exactly. So Femke, you can go first if you would like.
So you're asking for a call to action?
Yes.
Yeah. Of course, you can support our civilians initiative to ask the government for a law that bans fossil fuel advertisements. If you're a member of a political party, be sure to vote for it to enter into the election program. And also, if you would like to join our group and fight NRC Handelsblad or Boerhaven or any other city that still puts fossil fuel advertisements out there, please contact me and join us.
Call to actions. At Fossil Free Culture, you can go onto our website and make a donation. And if you do, I promise I will personally mail you a present to say thank you. What else? Yeah, you can also, if you have any like skills you'd like to share or you'd like to participate in any way, feel free to email me. The address is also on our website. Things to celebrate: clean water, to say thank you for water. Yeah. Oh, and another call to action: support each other. Support your friends. Yeah.
A big shout out from your mom. Thank you for being active in general and supporting Je Moeder in the general sense, because I know that everyone around here is doing something activistic, basically. We are all transforming her into something healthy and something fun to live in. And if you want to support and see more creative actions from the action group, go to jemoedershirt.nl, get a shirt and support so we can make some more actions going on.
Yay! So thank you very much to the three of you. Now we will switch to our last part, which is a shell composting ritual served by Je Moeder. So I will let you at it.
So everyone, I already thank you for being here, and for being together is quite something special, especially because we are all for the same goal here. I want to invite you to land a little bit and welcome you as guardians, as shareholders, as custodians of planet Earth, the living space ball that is floating through time and space. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes for a little minute. As you breathe in and breathe out slowly, you can feel your breath, fill your lungs with the air, the little tiny layer of atmosphere of our lovely globe. The air particles that were produced and cleaned by plants around us. With every breath you take, You feel this tiny layer of atmosphere. Maybe if you find some silence, you can feel your heartbeat. Your heart pumping blood through the rivers of your body. With every beat. And you can feel your bum and your feet connecting to the floor below you. Imagine some roots coming from your feet, connecting to the soil, some layers below. And then give some extra gratitude to the fire that brought you here, your passion. What brought you here that you are fighting for? And I want to invite you to come back to this space. Open your eyes and look around you. And have some eye contact with everyone that has the same fire inside. Normally we would do this in a circle, but yeah. We're all transforming the world around us. Transformers as we are. Because we know that energy is neither created nor destroyed. It's only transformed, right? And as we are all transforming our whole lives, we are also transforming the things around us. And in this case, I want to talk about Shell. The symbol of energy, right? And a big energy company. Actually, this symbol is a force of nature. It's one of the most powerful forces that nature creates. This represents a power of nature, which is hijacked by Shell. This symbol is hijacked by Shell. And it now stands for death and destruction. So what we're going to do, we're going to transform this. We're going to break the spell that's on this shell, so we can transform this energy into something that we can use. So I'm going to need your help again a little bit. I need you to think of one word, because all the spells that are on this shell are made of stories, right? It's if you think about a one-word story that is on a spell on here, what would it be? That's right. And what do we do with this spell? We want to transform it, right? Shall we break the spell? Yeah. So are we going to break the spell? Yeah. The spell of colonization? Yeah. Let's do it. Whoa. As you can see, it's not yet fully done yet, the job. So we need more to break more spells. Who's got more spells for me? One word spells. What do we want to break? Sorry? Land grabbing. There you go. Nice. Anything else? Any other spells we want to break? Lovely spell. Let's do it. Let's break the spell of capitalism. Anything else? Extractivism, good one. Let's break the spell of extractivism. No, one more. Yes. Good one. Let's break the spell of exploitation, right? Ready? Bam. Yes, please. What was it again? Human supremacy. Let's break this spell also. Anything else? It's kind of broken already now. Huh? Imperialism. Very good one. Let's do it. Let's break the spell of imperialism. Marvelous. So now we broke, or is there any other thing anyone like to add? I think it's kind of broken now, right? So what do we do this when we break down things, when we make shell fall, when we reclaim our power? We are actually transforming it, and we must always remember we're always transforming energy into something that can be used. So what can be better than adding it as a soil enrichment to make new life grow? So with these little minerals, we're actually adding extra life force to this new little tree that we just planted here. And I want to bless this little tree of life with new stories. And I need your help a little bit also with what kind of stories that would be. So when we bless new life, what would we do it with? Can I say the first one? I would say compassion is a really good one to add. Good health. Right. Anything else besides good health and compassion? Justice, good one. As you see, we're not only breaking the structure of shell, we're dividing it and we're decentralizing it into little separate trees that we can grow later. So, what else do we need? Care? Sorry? Community care. Awesome. Community care. What else do we need? Reciprocity. Very nice one. The process of giving and taking in balance. Two more to go. Art. Beauty. Love it. Very important. One more. One more. Solidarity, of course. Well, we can add it, no worry. Connection. Yeah. So when we take this shell and we transform it into something decentralized and something that actually nourishes this tree of life, together with community and care, together with good health, with justice, compassion, solidarity, connection, and art, and beauty, and reciprocity. This is how we can transform shell and really start thinking also of what to do, what happens when it falls. So we can nourish life to live happily in space and time on Earth through space.
Can you say one more thing about what we're planting?
Of course. I chose to... Ja, in het Nederlands misschien is nicer. It's an oak. En hiermee laat ik zien dat er ook eikels tot iets moois uit kunnen groeien. So actually we're going to place these little oaks and wait for spring so they can sprout. And enrich them with some minerals.
Thank you very much, Eline. That was a beautiful ritual. That's the perfect way to conclude this panel about culture and how to take shell out of it. Just a quick reminder about our exhibition, because this is what it is about in the end. We are opening next Friday at 7 p.m. at the NDSM Fuse. We will be there until December, until the full month of December. You're more than welcome there. We will be there on Friday if you want to ask us more about each installation, which we'll be happy to introduce you to. Like this beautiful dress that has been made for the Nopulence label of Extinction Rebellion. The first time they showed it was with this beautiful model who is Ariel Freeman Hopeless. She was really nice to participate to that event that was made by Extinction Rebellion against the fast fashion industry to push people to upcycle. And for that, Stephanie used the banner from the campaign Shell Must Fall, and both of these pieces will be at the exhibition. On this, I thank you a lot very much all for your presence. It was an honor to present you our exhibition, and I hope that you learned a lot from our beautiful panel, both this morning and this afternoon. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
forgotten shall must fall. They poison the water that in hell of all. My butcher people not forgotten shall must fall, shall must fall.
Butcher people not forgotten
shall must fall.
They poison
The water threaten health of all. My butcher people not forgotten shall must